Narrow Gauge Railroad. My name is Tommy. I'll be your engineer today. It is the ER conductor, the one that came around to collect your tickets. The engine I'm operating today is engine number 2. It's called the Hinsel, built in Germany in 1936. It is coal-fired and steam-powered and operates on our 2-foot narrow gauge railroad tracks. Our tracks follow the original route of the Midland Terminal Railroad. The Midland Terminal started in Divide, came south through Goldfield, Fisher, Anaconda, and then finally into Cripple Creek. It was the second railroad to show up in Cripple Creek back in December 1894. Our depot and gift shop is the original depot from the town of Anaconda. It was built in 1895. It's moved on since 1912 to Bull Hill, where it sat at an altitude of 10,200 feet, making it the highest operating depot for the Midland Terminal. It was moved once more in 1968 to where it sits, and it's been our depot and gift shop ever since. While the train is in motion, we'd like to ask everyone to please keep all arms length, purchase cameras, and side vehicles at all times. We will be making a few short stops along the way. If anyone would like to get up and move around at that time, it'll be fine. If anyone does have any questions, feel free to ask myself or anyone else here at the gift shop when we get back, and we will do our very best to answer those questions. And now we're just waiting upstairs for the depot. As soon as we get that, we'll be on our way. On the right side of the engine, all these mounds of yellow and black rock over here are called the Yellowbird Mine. And the mounds over on the other side are called the Redbird. Together those two mines did produce about $2 million worth of gold. Keep in mind that most of the gold values I'll give you today is back when gold was worth about $20 an ounce. Today gold is worth about $1,850 an ounce. Again, on that left side, that wooden building up there that's still standing is the original blacksmith shop from the town of Anaconda. They say you can hear those whistle blasts from over 10 miles away. Folks used to use whistles like that up here all the time to signify things like shift changes, emergencies, and even fires. And it was pretty effective since you could hear it from so far away. Now if you look way out there in the distance at that very last set of mountains you can see out there, those are called the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. The Spanish explorers called them that when they came here because if you look over those mountains in the sky during a sunset, it's a beautiful red hue. And translated to English, Sangre de Cristo means the blood of Christ. Now straight out across from the highway and the clearing in the field down there, used to be a really small town called Berry. Berry was really small. There was only about 200 people who actually lived there, but they were very culture driven. So they had people like movie stars and actors and singers and stuff would come visit them quite often. And if you were to follow that clearing on around the hillside, used to be Mound City over there. Mound City was also small, about 400 people. In between those two, there was a decent place for people to work. They had 2 gold processing mills. There was one called the Rosebud, and the other was called the Brody. Now, straight out from the engine, that hillside over there with the yellow and black rock, is the El Paso mine. The El Paso mine is as deep as the Empire State Building is tall, which is about 1,500 feet. That wasn't the deepest mine up here, though. The deepest one was actually the Ajax, being 3,350 feet, more than double. That stretch of highway you can see there beneath our tracks is Colorado State Highway 67. It's laid along the original roadbed of the Florence and Cripple Creek Railroad, which was the first one to show up into Cripple Creek in the earlier part of 1894. They had a standard 4-foot 8.5-inch track. where we now have a narrow gauge 2-foot. And the other thing about that one was it was so profitable that it paid for itself in just the first year of operations. But it was only around for a few years. They had a big flood that came through here. It wiped out like 8 miles of their track and trestle and everything. And instead of rebuilding that one, they just paved it into a highway. I'm going to go ahead and back us up now to our next stop called the World's Fair. We'll turn around there, and I'd like to tell you all a little bit about the active gold mine we can see up in front of the engine once we get there. And active Cripple Creek and Victor gold mine. They started mining back in 1995. Most years, they produce between 200 and 300,000 ounces of gold, and a little bit of silver and platinum there as well. They have over 800 employees, which makes them the largest employers for all of Cripple Creek and Victor. And even after paying that many people, they still profit just over $500 million each year. That is the largest open pit mine in all of North America. And so what they do there is they'll take all of their ore after they blast it, they'll run it through a big crusher and crush it down into small rocks and dirt. Then they stack it up on top of 2 very thick layers of black plastic. After that, they'll run a water and cyanide solution down it. And what that does is it'll separate all of that gold and other precious metals from the rock. You can see where they're spraying it up on top. Now over on the other side of the engine, we can see Cripple Creek from over here. Today, Cripple Creek is way smaller than it used to be. There's only about 1,500 people who live there now. Back in the day, there was over 25,000 people living there in Cripple Creek. But as the gold was slowing down up here and folks had to move to find work elsewhere, there were a lot of empty homes left over. And those homes were pretty affordable. They were like $100 or $150. So they came up here, they bought those homes, and then they dismantled them and took all of that material down to old Colorado City to build brand new homes out of it. Alright folks, I'm going to go ahead and start moving us towards our next stop. Way up this hill though, on the left side of the engine, you're going to notice a large concrete pad over here. That does cover up the entrance to the World's Fair mine, which is about 1,200 feet deep. Discovered gold, he got really excited, so he went on a 3-day drinking binge to celebrate. When he had sobered up from that binge, he realized he had sold his claim for just $500 and a few cases of whiskey. Now, the new owners came in, they renamed it the Gold King Mine, and they produced $3 million worth of gold out of there. They later profited down to Colorado Springs to build the Broadmoor Hotel. In Avenue, which is that closest street to us, and they knocked over a kerosene lamp. That resulted in a fire that burned down over half of the city. Just a few days later, a grease fire broke out in the kitchen of the Portland Hotel, and it burned down the other half. Now, back then, everything here was made out of wood, including the sidewalks, so those fires were devastating. One of the very few wooden buildings to survive those fires is that one across from us over there with the red and white paint. That is the Colorado Trade and Transfer. Then after those fires happened, a new city ordinance mandated that if any new buildings were to be built on Bennett Avenue, which is that main road over there, or even 1 block away from Bennett, had to be constructed completely out of bricks, and that's why all these brick buildings are here today. Most of them are dated for 1896 and shortly thereafter. Now, a real long time ago, there was a big wide creek that ran through here, and it's actually underground now, but this creek, it was really wide, and it had a very fast water flow, so it was really hard to walk across it. But there was a farmer, his name was Levi Welty, and every year, old Levi, he had to get his cattle across this creek, and every year, 1 or more of his cows would end up breaking a leg crossing that creek. Year after year that happened to him, and then both of his sons broke their legs crossing the same creek. Finally, one year, old Levi, he had just had enough. He took off his hat and threw it way up in the air, and he said, "That sure is one doggone Cripple Creek." And that's how the city got its name. Alright, folks, I'm going to go ahead and pull us forward up into Poverty Gulch. On the way up there, though, on the inside of the engine, the second wooden structure you're going to see was Bob Womack's old log cabin. And then the 2 cars. Before I do that, I would like to thank each and every one of you for riding on the train today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your time up here in Cripple Creek.